defense made a decision as to how you would like to proceed today.
Yes, Your Honor, and we will not be presenting any witnesses.
So the defense rests as well?
Defense rests.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that means that you have heard the evidence that you are going to hear in this trial. Let me remind you of what remains. What remains are the closing arguments of counsel and then ultimately the final instructions that I'll be giving to you. I think I explained a couple of days ago that counsel and the court tried to reach agreement on instructions. We've been successful in being able to do that. So that means that we'll go from closing arguments directly into the final instructions, and then after you get the final instructions, that's when we take it from 14 to 12. Not my favorite thing to do after people have sat through it. That is when we bring the juror number from 14 to 12, and then ultimately you can begin deliberations. I hope that all makes sense. I do want to also point one more thing out. In closing arguments, the prosecutor, Mr. Becker, goes first. Then Mr. Kirchhoff, on behalf of the defense, goes next. The prosecution does get a rebuttal argument if it chooses to use it. The reason that the prosecutor, if you will, gets the last word is because the burden of proof rests on the people. And that is the reason why they do have the right to rebut if they choose to do so. So I hope that all makes sense. Mr. Becker, are you ready for your closing? I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I will need the screen with a PowerPoint. You can probably leave the lights on its own. Okay. Every time you think about this case, it's shorter and shorter how to describe it. This is an execution. I mean, that's what it was on May 31st. He executed Leah. And when you think about it, an execution, what is it? It's an intentional act. It's something that's deliberate. When you think about, and when you use the term execution, it's not, well, mistakenly, you don't accidentally execute somebody. I suppose you could do the wrong person, maybe. But execution is something that's intentional, it's deliberate. It's first-degree murder. And that's what you have to decide. It's maybe just a one-word version of first-degree murder. So I'm not going to go over a whole lot, go over the whole case for you, but I think when you get down to it, when you look at the elements that the judge has already given you, the elements that you will hear once again, because we're going to go over it. But what is it? A death caused by the defendant in terms of multiple gunshot wounds. That's the first thing. That's the first element. Well, we have that. We have a death caused by the defendant because he killed Leah and executed her. So what is the intent? Well, just think about that. The intent to kill, and I think the first thing, just a simple intent, is this. You use this against another human being. That's an intent to kill, simply. There's no other explanation about it. You're not going to point this and fire 7 times. Well, I was just trying to murder. No, that's an intent in itself. That is an intent to kill when you use a weapon in that fashion. And what else do we have up there? Look at those bullets. Look at those bullets. Those are not small bullets. That's an intent when you're using bullets that size against another individual. Okay, demonstrating intent. And for some reason, I don't want to go over it too much. If there's some confusion on, wow, did he really do it? I mean, you remember the testimony. These are the Wolf 223 casings that are found on the side, with the Wolf 223 casings that are found in that weapon that are found in the defendant's apartment. This isn't a question of who done it. Okay, this is a question of what is it. So I just want to put that to the side. If for some reason you don't trust the confession, there's plenty of evidence that shows he did it that day. We have his neighbor saying he sees him walking in with a gun just after seeing the gunshot shots. So that's all an intent to kill. That's your first, the second element, if you will. It is an intent. Well, then it gets maybe a little bit more. Okay, what does that mean? The judge is going to talk to you. One of the elements, premeditation. Premeditation. What does that mean? Thought out beforehand. Okay, that's simply thought beforehand. We talked a little bit about in jury selection, right? In jury selection, when we talk about, you can premeditate to go out to dinner, and you can plan a month in advance, and you can make the reservations at Leo's, you can plan out for drinks, and maybe you plan your Lyft driver so you don't have to drive home drunk or something like that. Premeditation doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean a full-blown plan. Premeditation can happen when you go home at night. Decide we're going to go to Red Lobster because we don't have any food in the house, and we just want to get done with things. Okay, that's premeditation. It doesn't mean that you have a whole full plan. So what do we have for premeditation here? maybe even one photo. I mean, this is a photo premeditation, and then once again, there's not a separation, if you will. Okay, you can't, use one thing for intent, one thing. This is all interaction. Once again, premeditation is getting a weapon like this. Premeditation is leaving Leah outside in her car, walking back into your apartment, finding the gun. Because you remember the evidence, what did he say? He had to go find the gun that was it was up high. You remember telling me? He had to find the gun, get the gun, and what? Wrap it in that blanket. The blanket that's in the evidence. He had to wrap it in the blanket. That is premeditation. He's thinking about it beforehand. That's a plan. To go then walk out and fire those shots. That's all that, those are steps that happened before he even fired the shot. So that is premeditation. It doesn't, like I said, 7 minutes, at least 7 minutes. Because that's when you start looking at the security photos that was taken. So 7 minutes of planning, if you will, is plenty of time in terms of thought out beforehand. So you have premeditation here. So what's the next thing? Premeditation and deliberation, because you're going to hear about this. So deliberation, that's what it kind of maybe boils down to me. The key thing is deliberate, real and substantial reflection for long enough to give a reasonable person to think twice. Okay? Does he have enough time to think twice about what he's about to do? Well, I submit to you, I think it goes beyond 7 minutes. I've talked a lot about 7 minutes, but let's look at the evidence here. Okay, when you look at it, I think I got the laser pointer here. Pay attention to the times. These are all exhibits. Exhibit 17. You can barely see it. 2:51. So 2:51, he's taking his daughter out to Leah. Right? What does that tell you? She's on the phone already, right? That's the triggering event here, that he's mad. She's on the phone at 2:51. He knows she's on the phone. Whatever, thinks it's a friend, thinks it's a boyfriend, whatever, he thinks he's cheating on her. Well, how long does this happen afterwards? He goes in and out. It's 2:54, he comes back in, he goes out at 2:57 with the bag. We don't have him, we missed him coming back in, but we know he's leaving again with the oxygen tank at 3:01. Okay, that's time. This is time once again. He knows from the beginning she's on the phone, and you hear the testimony of Jose, the very first witness who's actually on the phone when this all goes down, saying, yeah, I'm on the phone, there's nowhere. I don't hear you screaming, yelling, anything crazy. But he knows that this is going on, and she's on the phone, and then 1 second says that there's a hang-up at that point in time. So in terms of deliberate, he's got all this time on top of when he comes back in at 3:07. At 3:07 to get the gun, to get the weapon, to cover it up, to go back outside. That is enough time for a reasonable person to consider what the heck they're doing. That's what we're talking about here. He's got plenty of time. This is not something that all of a sudden pops out. So then what else? Because your part of that instruction is what? Killing cannot be of a sudden impulse. Is this a sudden impulse? Watch this video. Is that a sudden impulse? Is that somebody enraged? I'll play it one more time. He's like walking to the park. Is this something it's an impulse. An impulse is, man, you're not thinking. He's mad, he's angry, she's talking to another man, he's jealous. Is that somebody jealous? Get the gun, just kind of waltzing out there, covering it up. Okay? And so once again, this impulse, he's so enraged that he's got enough sense to then cover it up when he comes back in, trying to hide it. I mean, this is all, once again, he's trying to hide it. He's covering up that gun. Once again, going to the deliberative part, going to the intentional part, he's hiding the gun because he doesn't want to get caught. He doesn't want to scare her off. That's all deliberation. That's intent. He doesn't want to get picked up. He knows there's cameras in there. He's thinking enough. There's enough in his head that he's trying to cover everything up. That's not a rage. That's not an impulse. An impulse is you're not thinking straight because you just react. This isn't just simply a reaction. This is a plan. This is intent. This is him wanting to kill her. Now, he may be mad. He may be not happy with it. But I think there's one other thing. I'm going to show us, once again, going back to what Justice Sarah, there's going to be pictures of her, Leah, right now. This is controlled. This is something that's controlled. Because why? Okay, he was just outside, maybe 4 feet away, just by the car. But somebody who's enraged, who's with jealousy, this, there's going to be something that, oh my gosh, he acts on impulse. But he doesn't manage to do anything, hit anything in the car. He's not firing wildly, right? He's got what? 5 shots across another one of the face. All headshots. I know he's close, but that's pretty darn good. If you're really enraged and you can't think straight, and there's jealousy driving you to that. He hits a pretty darn good target at a close range because he's under control. He's under control, and you see that when he walks out, he's under control. He's waltzing out like he's going for a Sunday stroll, but he's going to go kill his girlfriend. And it doesn't affect him at all. And that's what we're talking about. Premeditation, intent, deliberation, it's all there. This is a first-degree murder. You're going to hear something. You've heard about first-degree murder. You're going to hear second-degree murder. You're going to hear a third thing. There is a lesser offense you can consider. Voluntary manslaughter. This is not voluntary manslaughter, because that's what the argument is. It's, once again, this rage. The elements for voluntary manslaughter is the defendant acted out of passion or anger brought about by what? Adequate cause. What's the adequate cause here? She's on the phone? Being on the phone with another person? That's adequate cause to go out and go get this weapon, an AR-15, and shoot her 7 times because she's on the phone with somebody else? And at this point in time, if you remember this friends, it's not like she's talking to him. You heard, going back to Jose, they're not saying, aha, I got another boyfriend, I hate you, you stink, you're a worthless piece. No, it's a friend. They're on the phone. So he loses it because she's on the phone. But that's not another thing you can do, because what's the other 2 things? There's all this talking about reasonable. A reasonable person might have acted. A reasonable person. Is anything about this that would make a reasonable person act in this way? A reasonable person goes and gets a gun because somebody's on the phone with somebody he doesn't like? That's not reasonable. It's not the jealous boyfriend standard. It's not the jealous ex-boyfriend standard. It's not, well, this person's a hothead. It's a reasonable person. Reasonable person, people don't act this way. There's nothing reasonable about this reaction. So if it's not reasonable, what is it? It's first-degree murder. And that's what you have here. It doesn't meet the test for voluntary manslaughter. And once again, acted before a reasonable amount of time has passed. We've gone over this. I don't want to try and beat a dead horse, but going over it, but a reasonable amount of time is 7 minutes. 7 minutes to think about what the heck you're going to do and say, what the heck? I think it's more than that. She's been on the phone since 10 to 3. And why is it taking almost a half an hour for him to get the stuff out to his girlfriend so she can leave with the baby? He's playing games here. He's playing games. He's drawn it out, not her. So nothing about this is reasonable. And that brings me to the final thing, what this is all about. You have the reasonable doubt standard. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That doesn't mean 100%. It's you use your common sense. I emphasize common sense here because when you come in those doors, it's not like you leave your common sense that you have when you're on the streets. Maybe put it another way, common sense, if it doesn't pass the smell test out there, it should pass the smell test in here. So think about it, if you're talking with your neighbor, and your neighbor says, yeah, I had a bad day today. My wife was talking with another guy, so I shot her 7 times. You're like, oh, that makes sense. Nobody'd say that's reasonable. He'd be like, what? That's crazy. Why would you do that? That's nuts. That's not reasonable. So it's not reasonable here because you got a judge and all these instructions. It's not reasonable. And reasonable doubt is just that. It doesn't make sense to say somebody can blow somebody away because they're on a phone call. And that's exactly what happened here. This was an execution. An execution is just another way of saying first-degree murder. There's only really 2 reasonable verdicts. Guilty of first-degree murder because he intentionally killed her. 7 shots. He had plenty of time to think about it. He deliberated when he did it. And he used the gun with the official of a felony. That's a felony firearm. The only reasonable verdict here is you find him guilty as charged. But I ask that you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Mr. Kirkhoff, I'll turn it over to you.